I'm Steve Wilkerson, and I'm with David Royse, Executive Editor of the News Service of Florida. David, the signs of spring are everywhere. And the signs that Governor Rick Scott are running for governor, they're everywhere. Talk about some of those signs.
Yeah, there's no question the re-election campaign has started. For obviously the first couple of years, he was just being governor, and he had said he was going to run for re-election. He's now basically campaigning for re-election. Now, when he talks about the economy, which is basically pretty much mostly what he's talked about for the last 2.5 years, but now when he talks about the economy, it is always under the context of the comparison of the economy now versus the last 4 years before he was governor, which of course was the time when Charlie Crist was governor. Charlie Crist is significant, of course, because he might be Governor Scott's opponent in the next election. So now, almost every time Governor Scott mentions the number of jobs that have been created since he has been governor, he compares that with what happened to the number of jobs in Florida during the 4 years before he became governor.
Let me ask you something. On its face, is that a fair comparison?
Yes and no. Sorry to be like a politician with that answer, but there's no question that from a factual standpoint, the number of jobs on Scott's watch have ballooned. I mean, the economy is coming back gangbusters. I was just thinking this morning as I drove around Tallahassee how much construction there is. It's amazing. And the jobs numbers are doing the same thing. It's every month the unemployment rate is a little bit lower, and the economy is actually creating jobs. For a while, the unemployment rate was getting lower because people were getting discouraged and dropping out of the labor pool. That's not really driving the unemployment rate going down now to the degree it was before. Now there are actual positive job growth numbers every month in Florida for the last few months, and the unemployment rate is below the national unemployment rate, it's actually right around the same place as the national unemployment rate. And there's no question that during Governor Crist's term, the economy went into the tank. Nationally and in Florida. Okay. I think any economist with some intellectual honesty would say that it's not clear how much credit or blame the Florida governor should get for the economy over the last 6 or 8 years. The Florida economy has ridden along on the tail of the national economy. The nation went into a recession during Governor Crist's term in office, and Florida followed right along with it. And I don't think that anybody can honestly say that Governor Crist is to blame for the national economy, dropping off the cliff. Likewise, I don't think anybody would say that Governor Scott should fully get all the credit for all the jobs that have returned. A lot of economists, I think, would say the economy was going to come back, and it really didn't matter that much who the governor was. It's cyclical, and it was going to come back. But there's no question that Governor Scott ran on a platform of, I'm going to lower the unemployment rate. We're going to create jobs. And jobs have been created, and the unemployment rate has gone down. In fact, I think by his main measurement of what he ran on, he's been successful.
And he has been remarkably consistent, saying jobs, 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 700,000 jobs in 7 years. David, has anyone begun to total up how many jobs during?
They have, and that's something we should do again. I don't know what the most recent ticker number is, but it looks to me like he's probably going to be on pace for that, assuming things keep going the way they've been going. It's positive job growth every month, and I think the surprising thing to me is that the governor's poll numbers are not better. If people really looked at what Governor Scott said would be the outcome of his governorship, that there would be lower unemployment, and they looked at the situation and they were intellectually honest with themselves, I think they would have to say, well, things are better off. I can't get my head completely around why Governor Scott's poll numbers are so bad, but he doesn't connect with people. Somehow the voters of Florida just they either don't like Governor Scott on a personal level for some reason, they don't connect with him, they don't believe him, they don't trust him. Something's going on, but because when you look at the primary reason for voting for this governor, a guy who said he would create jobs have been created. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but it is what it is. And we talked about Governor Crist. People like Governor Crist. Regardless of what happened on his watch, You know, there have been a couple of recent polls that have Crist out ahead of Governor Scott in a hypothetical governor's race.
I think Governor Scott has made it abundantly clear in the last week or so, 2 weeks, that if former Governor Crist gets into the race, it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be a tough road to hoe, that he's going to be comparing his governorship, you know, along certain indices to Scott's governorship, and it's going to be tough. I mean, he's going to be facing a tough onslaught.
He's going to try to pin the recession on Charlie Crist, you know, and he's going to try to remind voters every chance he gets that, look, when Governor Crist was the governor, unemployment rate was going up, 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 and Governor Scott has been governor, it's been going down, down, down. And you know, that's an easy soundbite, to be honest with you. Now, whether, again, it's so far doesn't seem to be swaying anyone, but that's definitely going to be, he's going to hit Crist over the head, over the head, over the head. But, you know, the economy really went into the tank in about 2008 when Charlie Crist was governor. And, you know, well, what do you say to that, Charlie Crist? And again, I think, you know, people, your average voter is not really probably very interested in reading a whole lot of deep economic data about, you know, sort of where the credit and blame should go for those things. And I think on a, you know, sort of very shallow level, Scott's got a really good, you know, campaign tactic there to sort of contrast those two times economically.
All right, let's talk about something else that's kind of interesting, and that is that there's legislation that'll come into committees this week to change the date of the session in even years.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about that.
So starting in 2014, if this legislation were to pass, we could be talking about legislation moving through in January. January is beautiful in Tallahassee, and there's a bill out there that would allow the legislature to move the legislative session back to January and February in even years. And the Constitution, I learned something with the filing of this bill. When I read this bill, I had no idea, but the Constitution says, the Constitution fixes the date of the session in odd years. But in the even years, it's up to statute as to when they hold it. So there's this bill that would change it in the even years. That would start in 2014. The only thing I can think of, and I don't know, I haven't really done any deep reporting on this, the only thing we could think of is it might have something to do with an election year. In even years, of course, are election years. If you have the legislative session earlier, it allows you to get out there and start campaigning for re-election earlier. And, you know, because the election is fixed in time. So you get a little bit more time to campaign. That's the only thing I can think of as to why that scheme is set up that way. But this bill is just starting to get moving. I don't know if it's going to pass or not, but I know a lot of people would love to have the session earlier. And you know,
so they can enjoy the springtime.
So they can enjoy the springtime, or so they can be on the campaign trail in the springtime. I don't know.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
For more about Florida politics and government, visit the Advances section of our website.